Hello, we're back. We're going to be working with states data again, except we're going to be working with a lot of numbers. Population data for, okay, many years. And we're going to do something called pivot tables and pivot charts. The deal with these is that they allow you to get averages or sums or mins or maxes of groups of data. So let's go ahead and select up our data. I want to start with a chart. Tables work almost the same way, but as engineers, we're going to be producing visual data mostly. We don't want to work with tables a lot. We want to make our data very visual. So let's insert a pivot chart. And yes, it's already filled in what ranges you want. If I didn't pre-select it, I'd have to select it now. And let's go ahead and put it in this worksheet so we can see the data and the uh, chart all together. Okay, where does it, existing worksheet, I need to put it somewhere. Let's put her there. There. So it's going to fill in a bunch of stuff right in the middle here in just a second. Okay, so now you can there's a table behind the chart. There's going to be a table anyway. So let's make the chart big enough to be able to see reasonably well. I'll go ahead and make it nice and big so that, yeah, I'll have to scroll back to see the data, but that's okay. So what we want to do is to get, for example, the let's see, what do we want to do? States and years. We want population to be the value field. So population, and we just drag it down to the values down here, and it gets the sum of the population. So let's do region. That's a good one to do because what we're doing is we're getting aggregates. Let's make the categories say region. There. So by the region, what is the total population? Midwest and so forth. We're starting to see something happening. We're also seeing this. Now, we also want another category, say year. Now it'll divide things up. There we go. So this is the sum of the population by region for each year. Okay. Now this isn't exactly the way I want it because I want a nice bar chart. So I'm going to move year up into what's called filters. Let's see how things change when I do that. There, if I should drag and drop, and it should drop into filters. There, year goes into filters. And so now we have a filter at the top. That isn't exactly what I wanted to see, but we'll get there. State, let's get state. Okay, state is so Now we break things down by state, and we get to select our year, what we want. Whatever we want, we can select the year. And this is sum over all the years. So it's not yeah, it's not very realistic yet. So what I want there, that's what I finally want right there. And by the way, the table's right behind it. There's the pivot table, and it takes the grand total. So this should be population in Missouri for 1970. This is the total population in the Midwest for 1970. It's the sum of these two. Okay. Now, instead of sum, we can get average. Value field setting. That's what we need to click, this value field setting. I click my little drop down arrow next to sum of population and go value field setting. And I can get count, I can get average, min, max, product, standard deviation, variance, some statistical stuff. That could be very useful. You're producing widgets on a production line. What's the average dimension for a particular widget? Things like that. So that's how engineers would use a pivot table. A lot of times pivot tables are used for business data. So let's do average instead of that. Now, average and sum ought to be the same in this case because there's only one data point. This'll change though. So in this case, let's see, we could go, well, anyway, you get the idea of these value field settings. You do get averages over the year though, for example. This should no longer be a sum, average population, grand total, so the averages move up. And is that 60, that's 6.9 million approximately, average population of these regions. Sometimes you want sums, sometimes you want averages. Okay? So these are aggregate. This is aggregate data, averages in this case. And you change it right over here with the value field setting. We can go back to sum, for example. Now we get a totally different numbers for our aggregates. It depends what you're interested in, what's most interesting to you. So sum might make more sense right here. Sum of grand total of all population in 1970, 8 for these states, close to 9 million. Then it goes to 10. Anyway, you can see the population growth by year. So year 1970 is blue, so by year it starts tallying like this. Let's see what happens. I'm going to try one more thing. Swap this, put the year back down in here. There, good. Now put the region up in here. So now, there we go. It'll give me, and I want to get the state over here. So now, 1970s population for all these states. Okay? These two categories. Ooh, let's just look at, yeah, this is getting busy. Don't like it. Tell you what, let's just drop the state. Let's look at the sum of the populations by region by year. Good way to view the data. Remember before we had regions and states and then these individual bars for the years. This time we have individual bars for the regions and the years are counting up along the x-axis, And so we can see population growth in a region. The orange region, not so good. There should be a legend somewhere. What the orange region, there it is. There's the legend. It was just off this screen. It was off to one side. There. Oh, get real, you silly machine. I could swear my old computers were a lot faster than these modern ones. I'll make it so that everything fits in the screen. There you go. And don't forget the table is right behind it. Okay, so now this lets you, as you can tell, this lets you play around with the data. It's click and drag and drop. It lets you play around with it to be able to see what you want to see in the way you want to see it. You can play games just like you saw me doing just a minute ago, playing games with the data. And again, it might be used for inventory data, for specifications, for parts, and so forth, for engineering things. These are just good examples to show you how to use Excel. Now, you can apply it to engineering data now. What is the average on a given shift of the number of defects or something like that? You have to be creative about how you're going to view the data, but at least these tools will give you the data. This is the end of sorting, filtering, and pivot charts. It's the end of this chapter. We'll get into transferring data in chapter 9 next. This is chapter 80 of your textbook, and I'll see you next week.